Imagine waking up in ancient Greece. The first thing you'd notice, besides the deafening crow of a rooster, is that your house is made of stone, with floors cold enough to make you reconsider life choices before your first yawn. The sun peeks through small wooden shuttered windows, casting long, sleepy beams across your sparsely furnished home. Your bed isn't the cloud of softness you're used to. Instead, it's a pile of straw stuffed into a simple wooden frame, with a linen sheet that's rough enough to make your skin feel like it just ran a marathon in sandpaper shoes. You groan, stretching muscles that already feel exhausted. Ancient Greeks weren't exactly known for comfort. The wealthy might have cushions, but most of the population, the majority, slept on simple mats or straw piles. So if you thought mornings were relaxing, think again. You stumble toward a small basin of water for your first wash of the day. Soap, as you know it, doesn't exist yet. Instead, you might use olive oil, scraping it off with a tool called a strigil, which is less spa treatment and more abrasive scraping of your skin until you wonder why humans evolved to have bodies in the first place. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a modest affair. The typical Greek eats barley porridge, sometimes mixed with a little honey, or bread soaked in wine, yes, wine in the morning. Don't expect a latte. The concept of flavored coffee, sugar, or even milk is centuries away. The porridge is sticky, bland, and may even have a few surprises, like nuts or dried figs, which you will either learn to love or not survive the taste. And before you even have time to swallow, your neighbors start appearing. In the city-states, privacy is a laughable notion. People are already out in the streets, doing chores, gossiping loudly, and judging you silently if you don't look sufficiently put together. You're unshowered, your hair is a mess, and everyone around you seems impossibly poised, wearing tunics that, frankly, make you question why you didn't just stay in bed forever. After breakfast, it's time for the first real challenge of your day, walking through the streets. Ancient Greek streets are narrow, winding, and crowded with carts, animals, and the occasional stray dog. There's no concept of traffic lights, crosswalks, or pedestrian zones. If you thought your morning commute today was stressful, imagine dodging goats, merchants carrying heavy jars of olive oil, and fellow citizens who seem to be in a constant state of philosophical debate. Any misstep, and you might get elbowed in the ribs by a man carrying a large amphora of wine or worse. Step in something unpleasant left by the ever-present animals. Once you finally reach the public square or agora, the reality of social expectations sets in. Ancient Greeks loved public life. Being idle isn't just frowned upon, it's socially unacceptable. So even if your body protests, your face must maintain a calm, interested expression, nodding politely at merchants, philosophers, and neighbors alike. And if you happen to meet a philosopher, get ready for a 10-minute lecture on virtue, life, or the metaphysics of being, all while you try not to drool from exhaustion. These conversations are demanding. They require thought, wit, and patience, and your morning energy has already been sapped just by surviving the streets. Meanwhile, hygiene isn't just about self-care. It's tied to morality and social standing. Greeks believed cleanliness of the body was connected to virtue of the soul. You scrub, scrape, rinse, and repeat only to have a faint layer of dust reappear as soon as you step outside. And forget deodorant, sweat, dust, and the heat of the Mediterranean sun create a subtle but constant reminder that personal comfort was not a priority in ancient life. Your first few hours, which you might think should be relaxing, are instead a test of endurance, patience, and your willingness to tolerate minor indignities repeatedly. And then there's the diet to consider, which affects your energy levels immediately. A breakfast lacking in protein means that by mid-morning, your body is already tired. You might sip water or a watered-down wine, but your stomach grumbles, reminding you that ancient Greek mornings are more survival than leisure. While you're trying to figure out the mysterious logic of why bread soaked in wine is considered food, city officials or elders may begin to inspect your neighborhood. Ancient Greeks loved public scrutiny, your behavior, dress, and even posture. Every yawn, stumble, or misstep is a potential mark against you, ensuring your morning remains a tense ballet of careful movement. The morning continues with chores: fetching water from a public fountain, tending to a small garden plot, or helping with household tasks. None of this is optional. In a society where everyone plays a role, idleness is treated as weakness. By the time you finish these minor labors, your morning normally meant to be a calm transition from sleep to the day's exhausted. The sun climbs higher, your energy dwindles, and your desire for a comfortable, soft nap grows exponentially. You begin to realize, in crushing detail, that you would not survive a day in ancient Greece without a strict tolerance for discomfort, a thick skin for social critique, and a strong constitution against bland breakfasts and abrasive scrubs. In conclusion, the morning routine of an ancient Greek citizen is a trial disguised as habit. From rough beds to public scrutiny, from bland food to complex hygiene rituals, from dodging animals to navigating a bustling agora. The first few hours of your day alone are enough to make you nostalgic for your modern comforts. And this is only the start of the day. The worst is yet to come. If mornings in 2025 feel stressful, remember, in ancient Greece, a simple wake-up required as much mental fortitude as a full day of modern work. After surviving the morning chaos of washing, stumbling through dusty streets, and enduring a breakfast that could barely wake your taste buds, it's time for the next phase of your ancient Greek life: education, work, and the subtle, relentless pressure to be slightly better than mediocre at everything. If you are a boy in Athens, your first stop is school, or, more accurately, a place where you will sit on uncomfortable stone or wooden benches, listen to a teacher drone on about subjects you neither understand nor care about, and practice writing letters on wax tablets with a stylus that somehow never stays in your hand properly. Girls, meanwhile, rarely attend formal school. They learn household skills like weaving, cooking, and managing a home, which, in hindsight, you might realize are just as grueling, if not more repetitive, than arithmetic and rhetoric. For boys, the day begins with learning the alphabet, reading simple texts, and practicing arithmetic. At first glance, this seems harmless, but consider that wax tablets are messy. Ink is hard to control, and mistakes are permanent unless you have the patience to smooth out the wax and start again. And forget about pencils that glide over paper. A stylus requires precision, pressure, and the kind of fine motor skill that even the most modern children might struggle with. Mistakes aren't just frustrating, they are embarrassing. Your teacher will likely sigh audibly, shake his head, or perhaps make a sarcastic comment about your inability to trace a straight line. Soon, arithmetic becomes more complex, introducing concepts like fractions, multiplication, and even rudimentary geometry. You may think fractions are harmless, but imagine attempting them on a wax tablet with inconsistent handwriting while your classmates snicker at your mistakes. By the end of the morning, your brain is already exhausted, and the physical strain of sitting upright on a hard bench has left your legs numb and your back aching. If you survive school, you move on to work. For many Greeks, this means tending to family businesses, helping in workshops, or even running errands for wealthier citizens. Trades include pottery, metalworking, and farming, each more demanding than it sounds. Pottery requires precision, strength, and patience, and one slip of the hand can ruin an entire vase. Metalworking is noisy, hot, and incredibly dangerous. One careless spark could result in serious burns. Farming may sound pastoral, but it's endless labor in the sun, digging, planting, and harvesting. Often with minimal tools and relentless pests, Sparta presents a unique twist on this theme of work and torment. If you are a Spartan boy, your day is less about arithmetic and more about survival, discipline, and, frankly, pain. Spartan children are enrolled in the Agoj, a state-sponsored training program where comfort, food, and warmth are minimized to create warriors. Breakfast might be skipped entirely. Physical training dominates the day, and every failure is met with harsh correction. You would not just struggle, you would fail spectacularly, especially if your modern body has grown soft from modern comfort. In the city, social expectations make every task more stressful. Work is public, learning is observed, and laziness is visible. Ancient Greeks valued honor and civic duty above personal comfort. Even if you are exhausted, you cannot simply rest or decline a task without risking shame. The burden of performance, combined with repetitive labor, creates a day that moves slowly, yet never feels complete. Lunch, if you can call it that, is another test of patience and tolerance. Common foods include bread, olives, cheese, and occasionally fish. There's no concept of fast food or convenience meals. Every bite requires chewing, swallowing, and enduring flavors you may find disagreeable. By this point, your stomach is protesting, your back is sore, and your mind is filled with nothing but monotony and mild panic at the thought of doing it all again tomorrow after lunch. Additional work or learning continues. For boys in Athens, this might involve rhetoric, philosophy, or further arithmetic. For girls, weaving, cooking, and household management persist. In Sparta, training continues with minimal respite, pushing your body and mind to limits that seem cruel by modern standards. You may start to wonder if ancient Greece was designed specifically to make modern people weep quietly at the thought of a single day's labor. Social obligations weave through work and school like an invisible, mildly annoying thread. You are expected to attend public events, assist neighbors, or contribute to discussions in the agora. Ancient Greeks were keen on civic participation, and ignoring these duties can earn public scorn. So even if you are exhausted from school and work, your social responsibilities continue to pile up. Like a mountain of slightly damp hay you can never quite climb, by mid-afternoon, Your energy is almost entirely depleted. Your muscles ache from chores or training. Your mind is foggy from hours of arithmetic, rhetoric, or philosophy that feels irrelevant. And yet, there is no escape. The city is alive, constantly bustling, and every corner brings another demand, another expectation, or another tedious task. Modern life feels luxurious in comparison, with chairs designed for comfort, food prepared for taste, and privacy guaranteed. In ancient Greece, you exist in a constant state of obligation, observation, and labor. In conclusion, the daily life of an ancient Greek citizen, from school to work, is a relentless series of small torments. From wax tablets and scribbling mistakes to heavy physical labor and social pressures, surviving even half a day requires resilience and patience. The modern person, accustomed to comfort, convenience, and personal space, would find the experience exhausting, frustrating, and, if we're honest, perfectly boring in the kind of way that makes you want to close your eyes and drift into sleep. By the time late afternoon arrives, your body aches from school, work, or Spartan training, and your mind is teetering on the edge of exhaustion. Yet ancient Greek life offers no respite. Instead, it introduces another essential aspect of the day: food, public festivals, and occasional minor conflicts that ensure your day remains eventful, monotonously stressful, depending on your perspective. Let's start with food. Ancient Greeks valued meals as a fundamental part of social and religious life, but by modern standards, they were peculiar. Dinner, often called deepnon, consisted of bread, olives, cheese, vegetables, and occasionally fish or meat for those who could afford it. Wealthy citizens might enjoy honey-sweetened desserts or wine, but for the average citizen, meals were simple, repetitive, and bland. You might wonder how humans survived without seasoning, refined sugar, or comfort foods. Even more disturbing, some staple items, like fermented fish sauce, garam, were considered delicacies. Imagine sipping on a pungent liquid designed to enhance flavor while your stomach quietly protests. During meals, etiquette is critical. You are expected to sit in a specific manner, eat at the correct pace, and converse with restraint. Talking with a mouthful or chewing loudly is socially unacceptable. Even if you are famished and tired, manners take priority. Failing here doesn't just embarrass you, it can invite disapproving glares or sarcastic remarks from elders, neighbors, or even your own family. Modern convenience meals or casual dining are unimaginable luxuries compared to this structured, mildly stressful routine. Food is followed by festivals, which are frequent in ancient Greece, often dedicated to gods like Dionysus, Athena, or Apollo. Festivals are a mix of religious observances, competitions, feasting, and general chaos. At first glance, they may seem fun, but consider the sensory overload. Streets crowded with citizens, noise from music, chanting, or shouting, the smells of roasting meat mingling with less pleasant urban odors, and participants engaged in competitions ranging from poetry recitals to athletic contests. You may think a festival sounds nice, but the reality is exhausting. Standing in crowds, observing rituals, and attempting to appear attentive is physically and mentally draining. Sports competitions, a major part of many festivals, are both inspiring and cruel. Athletes compete, nudies, fully exposed, which is socially acceptable for them, but mortifying if you are even remotely modest. Spectators cheer loudly, bet on outcomes, and sometimes argue violently over the results. Imagine standing in the sun, sweating, hungry, tired from earlier work, and having to pretend this chaos is entertaining. By the end, even the most energetic citizen would find it all painfully exhausting. Minor conflicts are common in everyday Greek life, even outside festivals. The agora, a hub of commerce and conversation, is a hotspot for arguments over debts, insults, or disputes about land. Imagine witnessing someone accuse a neighbor of cheating on a pottery deal, or a fisherman yelling at another for stealing his best catch. These skirmishes rarely escalate to serious violence, but the constant background tension creates a subtle, persistent stress. You can almost hear your modern brain whispering, "I did not sign up for this." Religious obligations also play a role in daily stress. Sacrifices to the gods, public prayers, and temple visits are frequent and require attention to detail. Performing rituals incorrectly is considered disrespectful and could bring shame, or worse, divine displeasure, though exactly how that would manifest is a matter of interpretation and superstition. You are not just hungry, tired, and sore. You are also responsible for ensuring the gods remain satisfied, adding a subtle but weighty layer of pressure. Food, festivals, and conflicts illustrate a broader theme of ancient Greek life: constant engagement, minimal downtime, and social accountability. Even leisure, such as attending a festival or watching athletic competitions, is taxing rather than restorative. There is no couch to collapse on, no snack to passively consume while scrolling a phone. Every action is observed, evaluated, and often criticized, ensuring that your day remains a steady march of obligations. As evening approaches, you may attempt to return home, hoping for respite. Yet the day's fatigue is compounded by thoughts of tomorrow. Another morning of hard floors, early rising, chores, school, or training. Your stomach is still not fully satisfied. Your body aches, and your mind is already anticipating the next day's tedious challenges. By modern standards, surviving even a single day in ancient Greece requires endurance, discipline, and a tolerance for discomfort bordering on heroic. In conclusion, ancient Greek food festivals and social interactions contribute to a life that is simultaneously fascinating and exhausting. Meals are simple but demanding, festivals chaotic yet mandatory, and minor conflicts frequent enough to test your patience daily. For a modern individual, even observing these aspects can induce a mild, boring sleepiness as you realize how relentless, structured, and occasionally absurd daily life truly was. The ancient world, for all its beauty and cultural achievement, is also a place where surviving the ordinary required as much effort as heroic deeds. Stepping into ancient Greek political life is like walking into a room where chaos has a very formal schedule. The city-state assembly, or is a place where citizens gather to make decisions, discuss policies, and debate endlessly. But the experience is exhausting, confusing, and physically uncomfortable for anyone used to modern conveniences. From the moment you enter the forum, the sun blazes overhead, stone steps radiate heat, and the air buzzes with voices shouting over one another. Participation isn't optional. Ancient Greeks prized civic involvement, and attendance at the assembly is both expected. You, a modern visitor, accustomed to air-conditioned offices, ergonomic chairs, and coffee, are suddenly thrust into a standing crowd on hard stone, required to focus, listen, and respond appropriately for hours. There is no modern break room, no cafeteria, and certainly no way to discreetly check your phone while pretending to pay attention. Every citizen's behavior is public. A misstep, a faint yawn, or a poorly timed comment risks social judgment. The assembly itself is a cacophony. Speakers gesticulate wildly, projecting their voices across open-air spaces. They debate everything from taxation to military strategy, often repeating arguments in circular patterns. Your brain, already fatigued from navigating the morning streets, is forced to decode rapid-fire rhetoric in a language that sounds both familiar and alien. Each speaker expects attentive reactions, nods, shouts of approval, or the occasional clap, but doing so while standing for hours in the sun is no small feat. Seats are non-existent for most. You stand. Feet ache, legs cramp, and the occasional stumble can lead to minor embarrassment or bumping into fellow citizens, which may provoke irritation. The rich and influential may sit on slightly more comfortable stone platforms, but everyone else experiences the full brunt of ancient discomfort. Sweat drips, dust collects, and the scent of olive oil, sweat, and the occasional unwashed tunic mingles in the air. It's sensory overload the modern mind is ill-prepared to handle. When it comes time to vote, the process is no less draining. Ancient Greeks used methods like hand-raising, placing pebbles in jars, or other manual systems. Accuracy and attentiveness are crucial. Failing to participate correctly could not only embarrass you, but might also impact civic outcomes. Imagine juggling mental arithmetic, public attention, and social performance, all while standing for hours under the glaring sun. Modern elections, with ballots and privacy booths, suddenly seem luxurious. Officials, magistrates, and council members, such as those in the bowl, conduct their duties publicly. Their work involves record-keeping on clay tablets, organizing public festivals, and overseeing legal and tax matters. Even the simplest clerical task is physically taxing. Writing on tablets requires awkward wrist positions. Styluses are primitive, and mistakes are laborious to correct. Unlike modern office work, there are no soft chairs, coffee machines, or quiet spaces. Each task demands physical endurance and mental precision simultaneously. Political debates extend beyond official assembly meetings. Philosophers, rhetoricians, and ordinary citizens weigh in at any time. You may think listening is sufficient, but ancient Greeks value verbal engagement, responding thoughtfully while balancing fatigue and sun exposure is another trial. Missing a subtle point can make you appear foolish, while mispronouncing a word could earn sarcastic commentary or public ridicule. Your energy drains quickly, yet you are expected to maintain alertness, as civic reputation is a constant concern. The surrounding environment adds to the sensory strain. Noise from the marketplace, animals, and street traffic invades the assembly. Merchants shout to attract buyers. Children run through the square, and stray goats wander into crowds. The combination of social, mental, and environmental stressors creates a slow, relentless exhaustion. Even the most robust modern individual would struggle to maintain. Composure under such conditions, social etiquette is equally demanding. Ancient Greeks value honor, decorum, and visible attentiveness. Slouching, whispering to a neighbor, or showing boredom can be interpreted. Every gesture, glance, and posture is potentially observed, recorded in the mental ledger of those around you. You must walk the fine line between engagement and overexertion, a balance difficult to achieve after a long morning of chores, school, or minor labor. Public speeches are often lengthy and repetitive. You may hear the same arguments repeated multiple times, sometimes with slightly different wording, forcing your attention to oscillate between alertness and the creeping desire to nap. Yet, leaving early or showing disinterest is socially unacceptable. Participation is mandatory in principle, enforced through civic pride and subtle peer pressure. Standing for hours, squinting in the sun, and keeping mental focus while absorbing repetitive arguments feels like a cruel test designed to challenge both endurance and patience. Even for those observing rather than participating, the experience is taxing. Citizens discuss, gossip, and critique others' speeches in real time. Minor errors, inconsistencies, or awkward phrasing are noted and remembered. A modern individual would find the atmosphere suffocating. Mental strain, compounded by physical discomfort, social scrutiny, and environmental hazards. You quickly realize that Greek democracy, while innovative, required a level of stamina that borders on heroic. In addition to formal debate, political life often includes ceremonial tasks, opening sessions with prayers, ensuring proper ritual gestures, and offering minor contributions to the gods are integrated into civic duties. Mistakes in these acts, though seemingly trivial, reflect poorly on your character. Religious, political, and social obligations intertwine to create a day that is continuous, demanding, and exhausting in subtle ways. To sum up, stepping into the political arena of ancient Greece is not a mere exercise in civic duty, it is an endurance trial. From standing on stone steps under the sun, decoding rapid speeches, navigating minor etiquette rules, to enduring sensory overload, even a brief visit tests your patience and physical stamina. Modern life, with cushioned chairs, air conditioning, and private voting, is almost decadent in comparison. Surviving a day here requires not just attention, but mental fortitude, social awareness, and a high tolerance for minor discomforts. For a modern visitor, the experience is boring in a uniquely exhausting sense, slow, repetitive, and fatiguing enough to induce a mild, contemplative drowsiness. After surviving the exhausting political circus, your day in ancient Greece moves into another dimension of social obligation, the public spectacle of life and death. Here, even basic human experiences, athletic contests, and religious rituals become communal events that test patience, endurance, and your capacity to appear interested while utterly drained. Funerals are the first such spectacle. Death is not private in ancient Greece. Families organize long processions through streets, chanting lamentations and carrying offerings. You are expected to participate correctly, whether you are a relative, neighbor, or mere observer. Proper attire is essential. Men and boys in tunics, women in long, flowing garments. Walking too slowly, speaking out of turn, or failing to mourn convincingly can be considered a social faux pas. Even minor mistakes risk mild embarrassment or whispers from onlookers. The ritual is repetitive, formalized, and exhausting. Hours of chanting and solemn observation leave modern citizens yearning for the privacy of their bedrooms. Away from both sun and scrutiny, the procession is accompanied by symbolic gestures, pouring libations, offering flowers, and singing dirges. Each movement must be performed with care. Forgetting a step or misplacing an offering results in subtle but persistent social disapproval. You quickly realize that ancient mourning requires a delicate balance of respect, precision, and stamina. Even watching the procession can feel mentally fatiguing. Athletic competitions, another form of public spectacle, are similarly demanding. Unlike the brutal gladiatorial games of Rome, Greek athletic contests are celebrated cultural events, yet they are physically and socially taxing for both participants and spectators. Athletes compete nude, performing running, jumping, discus, and wrestling events with skill honed through rigorous daily training. Spectators are expected to stand for hours in the blazing sun, watching events unfold, reacting appropriately, and sometimes cheering or debating outcomes. Fatigue and hunger make attentiveness a challenge. Observing repeated competitions, many of which seem minor or redundant, strains your modern patience. Cheering is socially expected, but physically tiring. Those who fail to react adequately or appear distracted risk judgment from peers. The sun is relentless, water is limited, and food is sparse. Your back aches, legs cramp, and mental focus deteriorates as you try to maintain the facade of engaged citizenship. Even minor mishaps, stumble by an athlete, a dropped discus, or an overzealous competitor add layers of tension to the experience. Religious rituals are equally pervasive. Festivals, temple ceremonies, and sacrifices occur frequently, blending civic and spiritual life. Pouring wine on an altar, reciting proper prayers, or participating in ceremonial dances requires precise timing and attention. Missteps are socially noticeable, and ritual errors, however minor, can reflect poorly on you and your family. While the spiritual or cultural significance is clear, the repetitive and exacting nature of these rituals can feel laborious. Observing life and death in public also means witnessing grief, joy, and conflict simultaneously. Citizens cry at funerals, shout at athletic contests, and debate endlessly about proper ritual observance. Your sensory input is constant, leaving little room for mental rest. Modern observers, accustomed to privacy and personal space, find this communal immersion exhausting, if not bewildering. Even after the emotional intensity passes, your mind is drained from sustained attention and subtle social judgment. Additionally, minor public mishaps abound. Someone trips on uneven stones, spills an offering, or missteps in the procession. Each small accident draws attention, and bystanders subtly note your reactions. Your ability to maintain composure, express sympathy, and perform ritual duties correctly is continuously tested. Even the act of walking through a crowd demands care and patience. The combination of physical discomfort, social scrutiny, and mental effort ensures that public life in ancient Greece is anything but restful. The communal observation of life and death requires endurance, comparable to modern multitasking on overdrive. Standing for long hours, maintaining focus, executing precise movements, and appearing socially competent while fatigued by evening. After attending or observing multiple spectacles, your body aches, your stomach growls, and your mind longs for simple rest. Yet the day's final challenges, minor conflicts, chores, and preparation for tomorrow await. Ancient Greek life is relentless. Even ordinary tasks are magnified by social expectation, ritual precision, and public visibility. Modern convenience, privacy, and comfort feel like a distant dream. In conclusion, the public spectacle of life and death in ancient Greece is as exhausting as it is culturally significant. From funerals to athletic contests to religious ceremonies, the day demands continuous attention, precision, and endurance. Even passive observation can induce fatigue and boring sleepiness. Ancient Greek citizens endured these obligations daily, balancing social, spiritual, and emotional duties in ways that would challenge any modern individual accustomed to private, comfortable life. By the late afternoon in ancient Greece, you might think the day is winding down. You've survived morning chores, political assemblies, festivals, funerals, and athletic contests. But public life in Greece never truly rests. The agora streets and neighborhoods teem with minor conflicts and social hazards that ensure your day remains mentally taxing, physically uncomfortable, and, in a uniquely boring way, exhausting. The bustling marketplace at the heart of every city-state is a hotspot for small disputes. Merchants sell goods ranging from olives and bread. A customer disputes a price. Voices rise. A neighbor jostles another while carrying a heavy amphora of olive oil. Arguments erupt. Even seemingly trivial disagreements are conducted loudly and publicly, drawing attention from bystanders who quietly form opinions about your role in the chaos. You are expected to navigate these minor conflicts politely but firmly, a skill easier said than done after a long day. Petty disputes are not the only hazards. Streets are narrow, uneven, and crowded. Animals roam freely: goats, dogs, chickens, and the occasional stray horse. Tripping on stones, colliding with a pedestrian, or stepping in animal droppings is not only physically unpleasant, but socially awkward. Even small mistakes are observed and mentally noted by neighbors, adding subtle pressure to maintain constant vigilance. A modern person used to asphalt streets, sidewalks, and traffic lights would find this level of public scrutiny stressful and exhausting. Social etiquette amplifies the pressure. Ancient Greeks place high value on honor, appearance, and public perception. Slouching, whispering, laughing at the wrong moment, or failing to pay attention during conversations can mark you as careless or rude. Even minor gestures, a misaligned tunic, poorly tied sandals, or a forgotten greeting invite judgment. Social harmony is subtly enforced through observation, gossip, and expectations that you maintain composure and awareness at all times. Philosophical debates, while intellectually stimulating, often contribute to fatigue and mild anxiety. Listening to passionate arguments about ethics, virtue, or the nature of the cosmos requires mental stamina. Responding appropriately adds another layer of complexity. One wrong word or ill-timed nod can make you appear foolish. Participating in these discussions is socially obligatory. especially if you are a citizen of status and doing so while hungry, tired, or sun-exposed compounds the challenge. Even religious observances in neighborhoods carry minor hazards. Daily offerings, small rituals, or temple visits must be performed correctly. Misplacing a coin, mispronouncing a chant, or misaligning an offering brings subtle social critique. You are constantly balancing physical, social, and spiritual responsibilities, leaving little room for mental relaxation. The combination of minor accidents, social scrutiny, and environmental hazards creates a slow, cumulative exhaustion. By evening, your muscles ache from standing, walking, or participating in events. Your mind is fatigued from paying attention to disputes, debates, and etiquette. Your senses are overloaded with noise, smells, and sights that never allow you to truly rest. Even in the absence of large-scale crises, these small, sporty, persistent challenges test patience and endurance relentlessly. Conflict is not always overt. Subtle competition permeates daily life. Citizens compete for recognition, honor, and favor in social interactions. Someone laughs more convincingly at a philosopher's joke. Another recites a poem more accurately during a festival. Yet another carries water or goods more efficiently. Each minor comparison adds stress to your daily experience, reinforcing the expectation that you excel socially, physically, and intellectually in public life. Physical hazards persist. Uneven cobblestones, stray animals, and unpaved streets increase the risk of minor injuries. Even minor bruises or sprains are inconvenient because medical care is rudimentary. Simple actions like lifting heavy jars, climbing stairs, or navigating crowds require attention, energy, and coordination. You quickly understand that every movement carries social and physical consequences by the end of the day. The accumulation of minor conflicts and hazards leaves modern observers exhausted. While no dramatic battles or catastrophic disasters occurred, the daily grind of navigating ancient Greek society is relentless. Even boring tasks, running errands, attending discussions, performing rituals, require vigilance, attention to detail, and endurance. The mental and physical strain of small, repetitive obligations is enough to make anyone yearn for modern comforts. In conclusion, minor conflicts and social hazards are an inseparable part of ancient Greek life. The combination of marketplace disputes, street hazards, social scrutiny, subtle competition, and ritual obligations creates a continuous low-level pressure that tests stamina, patience, and composure. For modern individuals, experiencing even a fraction of these challenges evokes both exhaustion and fascination. Ancient Greek society, remarkable in culture and achievement, demanded endurance in every seemingly mundane moment, a daily reality that would leave most modern citizens drained, stressed, and mildly sleepy in the most historical way possible. After surviving the exhausting routines of politics, festivals, and public conflicts, it might seem that returning home in ancient Greece would provide comfort and relief. But here, as in the rest of Greek life, even domestic spaces carry their own challenges, discomforts, and subtle pressures. Homes, hygiene practices, and daily household routines are surprisingly demanding, especially for someone accustomed to modern amenities. Most Greek homes are modest, built from stone or sun-dried bricks. with minimal insulation against heat, cold, or dampness. Wealthier citizens might have multiple rooms, internal courtyards, and decorative frescoes, but the majority live in single-room homes or small apartments. Floors are hard, sometimes just compacted earth, stone, or tiles, making barefoot walking a mildly uncomfortable experience. Sleeping surfaces are simple mats or straw-stuffed beds covered with rough linen. Soft bedding, fluffy pillows, or warm blankets are luxuries reserved for the elite. Your first impression upon entering a Greek home is a stark awareness that comfort is secondary to practicality. Furniture is minimal: a few wooden stools, low tables, storage chests, and occasionally a bed frame. Kitchens, if present, are small, with simple hearths for cooking. Water is limited and typically fetched from public fountains or wells, meaning daily hygiene is a physically taxing chore. Unlike modern bathrooms, Greek homes lack running water or plumbing. Washing is done in basins or tubs filled manually, requiring both effort and patience. Hygiene itself is a slow, repetitive process. Soap, as we know it, doesn't exist. Cleaning relies on olive oil, scrapers called strigils, and water. Citizens smear oil onto their skin, then scrape it off along with dirt, sweat, and dust. The process is labor-intensive, time-consuming, and often mildly uncomfortable. Hair is washed with water or scented oils, combed with primitive tools, and styled in ways that vary by region and social status. Even minor mistakes in hygiene can carry social consequences, as cleanliness is tied to virtue, status, and public perception. Meals within the home continue the trend of low excitement. Breakfast is typically barley porridge or bread with olives or cheese, while lunch and dinner may include vegetables, legumes, fish, or occasional meat for the affluent. Food preparation is a constant task. Firewood must be gathered, fires maintained, and cooking utensils cleaned by hand. Spills, burned food, or improperly prepared dishes bring minor frustration and social disapproval if others are present. For women, managing the household requires attention to meals. Cleaning, childcare, and clothing maintenance are continuous, exhausting cycle that leaves little time for personal rest. Cleaning and maintenance are also labor-intensive. Floors are swept with primitive brooms, walls dusted, and water must be carried from public sources to wash dishes, clothes, and bedding. There is no electricity, vacuum cleaner, or running water, meaning even simple chores are physically taxing. Dust, smoke, and general urban grime infiltrate homes constantly, creating a low-level but persistent discomfort. Even privacy is limited. Walls are thin, windows small, and neighbors close. Conversations, disputes, and daily noises carry easily, meaning your home is rarely a completely private refuge. Activities like washing, eating, or resting are semi-public by necessity. The modern concept of personal space is nearly non-existent. Children contribute to the household chaos. They play in courtyards, sometimes spill food, and require attention. Boys may leave home for training or schooling, but girls often remain, learning domestic skills. Their activities are essential, but add to the household's noise, clutter, and ongoing labor requirements. Pets and livestock may also occupy domestic spaces. Chickens, goats, or dogs wander freely, contributing to both amusement and mess. Their presence requires careful navigation to avoid spills, injuries, or social embarrassment. Cleaning up after them is an ongoing, unavoidable task. Even leisure in the home is laborious. Spinning wool, weaving cloth, crafting pottery, or reading scrolls requires both time and effort. Reading is primarily for the educated, often male, citizens. Scrolls are cumbersome, writing is slow, and literacy is not universal. Leisure is intertwined with utility and learning, rarely providing complete relaxation. By evening, after navigating home chores and minor household duties, fatigue accumulates. Muscles ache from lifting water or firewood. The mind is drained from attending to numerous details, and the senses are overwhelmed by smells, noise, and heat. Even sitting quietly is sometimes interrupted by household tasks or family obligations. The day's grind is relentless, and comfort is minimal. In conclusion, ancient Greek homes, hygiene routines, and daily household tasks are a blend of practicality, discomfort, and subtle social pressures. Modern individuals, accustomed to beds, plumbing, electricity, and private spaces, would find life at home in ancient Greece exhausting, repetitive, and boring in the sense of slow, monotonous demands on both body and mind. Surviving a single day requires endurance, patience, and a strong tolerance for discomfort. After surviving the discomforts of home life, ancient Greek citizens must navigate another layer of daily hygiene and public health: the communal public baths and overall sanitation, or lack thereof. While modern readers might imagine these baths as luxurious spas, the reality is far more utilitarian, exhausting, and, frankly, mildly boring in the sense of relentless routine. Public baths, though present in some Greek city-states, are rudimentary compared to later Roman innovations. Bathing areas consist of stone pools or basins, often filled manually with water fetched from fountains or wells. Water is limited, cold, and shared among multiple citizens, requiring patience and endurance. Privacy is minimal. Men and women generally bathe separately, but within their own gender groups. Modesty is secondary. You must navigate crowded, slippery spaces, sharing water, space, and tools with dozens of others, all while maintaining decorum. Hygiene is labor-intensive. Soap does not exist, and cleaning relies on olive oil, strigils, scrapers, and vigorous rubbing. The process is physically tiring, especially after a long day of labor or household chores. Skin is oiled, scraped, and rinsed repeatedly to remove sweat, dust, and dirt. Hair is washed separately with water and sometimes scented oils, combed and arranged in socially acceptable styles. The effort is not optional. Greek culture links personal cleanliness to virtue and social standing. Failing to maintain hygiene risks subtle judgment or even gossip. Sanitation outside the baths is equally challenging. Ancient Greek streets have limited drainage. Waste disposal is rudimentary, often consisting of dumping refuse into designated areas or, less formally, onto streets. Citizens must navigate narrow alleys, avoiding human and animal waste. The smell, sight, and minor hazards of these conditions are constant. Walking barefoot or in simple sandals increases the risk of stepping in something unpleasant, adding minor but persistent stress to daily routines. Even water collection is arduous. Citizens spend hours fetching water for drinking, cooking, and washing. Wells or fountains are crowded, and transport involves heavy jars, often balanced on the head or carried in pairs. The effort requires strength, balance, and careful attention to avoid spills. A single mistake can ruin a day's supply. Forcing repetition and mild frustration, public sanitation also intersects with communal life. Baths, fountains, and latrines are social spaces where people gossip, argue, and observe one another. While you attempt to maintain hygiene, you are simultaneously judged for appearance, cleanliness, and behavior. Social vigilance is continuous. A modern person accustomed to private showers and bathrooms would find the constant public exposure stressful and exhausting. Diet affects sanitation and bodily comfort. Meals often consist of grains, legumes, vegetables, and occasional fish or meat. Digestive issues are common, and bathroom facilities are primitive. The nearest latrine may be a stone bench with a hole, often located in open or semi-public spaces. Long lines, crowding, and exposure to odors make this mundane biological need a source of subtle anxiety and discomfort. Modern conveniences like flush toilets and running water are unimaginable luxuries in comparison. Minor injuries and illnesses are common. Scrapes, burns, or infections from cooking, chores, or walking on uneven streets are handled with basic herbal remedies or rest. No modern hospitals exist, and even minor ailments can complicate daily routines. A cut while preparing food, a twisted ankle from uneven streets, or a mild fever can slow the day considerably, requiring endurance and patience despite the physical and mental strain. Sanitation and hygiene practices are deeply ingrained. Citizens recognize the importance of cleanliness for personal health, religious observance, and social acceptance. The repetitive, physically demanding tasks required to maintain cleanliness contribute to the slow, cumulative fatigue experienced by the average person. The day's routine: fetching water, bathing, washing clothes, cleaning floors, and maintaining personal hygiene becomes a rhythm of minor exertions that test stamina and patience. Even leisure intersects with these obligations. Some citizens engage in light exercise or discussions in the baths, but the combination of physical exertion, public scrutiny, and hygiene duties ensures that relaxation is minimal. The body is tired, the mind is overstimulated, and every small mistake carries social or physical consequences. Ancient Greek daily life, in essence, blends necessity, discomfort, and subtle social pressure in ways that would challenge any modern person accustomed to convenience, privacy, and comfort. By evening, after returning home or finishing public hygiene routines, citizens are physically exhausted, mentally drained, and ready for sleep, but still aware that the next day will demand the same repetitive, laborious attention to comfort, cleanliness, and social expectation. Surviving daily hygiene in ancient Greece requires endurance, focus, and the ability to tolerate minor discomforts persistently. In conclusion, public baths, sanitation, and the daily struggle of maintaining hygiene in ancient Greece highlight how even basic human needs were transformed into complex, physically demanding routines. Modern convenience obscures the immense effort once required for cleanliness, water management, and social compliance. For anyone accustomed to modern plumbing, showers, and private bathrooms, Greek sanitation routines are a slow, exhausting, and mildly boring endurance challenge. One that would leave you fatigued, yet oddly fascinated by human ingenuity in the face of daily hardship. By the time the late afternoon sun casts long shadows over ancient Greek homes, you might imagine the day finally allows for rest. Think again. In Greek domestic life, mundane chores, household accidents, and minor catastrophes continuously intervene, ensuring that even your attempt to relax is subtly exhausting and mildly boring in the historical sense. Daily chores are deceptively demanding. Cooking, cleaning, and maintenance tasks recur endlessly. Bread must be baked over a fire, which requires constant attention to prevent burning. Pots and pans are heavy and must be scrubbed clean with abrasive materials. Floors, often stone or compacted earth, accumulate dust, spills, and soot. Sweeping and scrubbing take effort and must be repeated regularly. Even small messes, spilled water, dropped oil, or scattered grains create ongoing irritation and require immediate correction to maintain household order. Children amplify domestic complexity. Boys and girls may play noisily in courtyards or rooms, accidentally knocking over jars, breaking pottery, or scattering food. Parents, usually women, must constantly supervise, correct, and repair damage. Children's mischief is unavoidable, and managing it requires patience, physical effort, and mental energy. Even minor incidents, child spilling water on a floor, dropping bread in ashes, or tripping over a stool, demand attention and repair. Preventing the home from ever feeling tranquil, pets and livestock are also a source of daily disruption. Chickens wander freely, knocking over items. Goats gnaw at furniture or clothing. Dogs track dirt through the home. While animals provide sustenance, companionship, and entertainment, they also require care, cleaning, and vigilance. Every movement in the household carries the risk of accidental damage or social embarrassment if a visiting neighbor observes your inability to control the chaos. Household accidents range from minor inconveniences to significant disruptions. Fire is a constant risk. Hearths, lamps, and candles can ignite flammable materials. Oil spills or unattended cooking fires are a recurring hazard. Even carrying water from wells or fountains carries danger. Jars are heavy, and a single misstep can result in spills, bruises, or broken containers. The physical effort of repeated tasks, lifting, carrying, scrubbing, is relentless, creating fatigue by the end of the day. Clothing management is another subtle burden. Tunics, robes, and sandals require maintenance. Clothes are washed by hand, often with cold water, and dried on rooftops or in courtyards. Folding, repairing, and storing garments adds repetitive labor. Small mistakes, like tearing a hem or losing a sandal, have minor but cumulative effects on daily efficiency and social appearance. Even wealthier citizens experience stress from clothing care, though with slightly more resources. The household is also a place of social observation. Neighbors, visiting friends, or family members constantly gauge behavior, cleanliness, and efficiency. Failing to manage chores properly can lead to gossip, criticism, or subtle shame. Social pressure transforms routine domestic tasks into ongoing tests of endurance, focus, and competence. You must not only complete chores, but do so in a socially acceptable manner. Adding mental strain to physical labor, weather complicates domestic life. Rain infiltrates homes without modern roofing or drainage, soaking floors, furniture, and stored goods. Summer heat makes stone floors unbearably warm, intensifying physical discomfort. Seasonal changes necessitate adjustments in daily routines, including fire management, clothing, and food preservation. Even routine tasks are transformed into endurance exercises under environmental pressure. Small household disasters are frequent and unpredictable. Spilled oil can stain floors and furniture. Dropped pottery breaks expensive items. Fires or smoke damage food and walls. These mishaps are rarely catastrophic individually, but their accumulation creates constant, low-level stress. Modern homes, with plumbing, electricity, and durable materials, obscure how much effort daily domestic survival historically required. Even the end of the day is not free from obligation. Household organization, minor repairs, and preparation for the next day consume remaining energy. Beds must be arranged, food stored safely, water collected for morning use, and any remaining chores completed. Fatigue is both physical and mental, arising from repetitive tasks, constant attention to detail, and awareness of social expectations. By bedtime, muscles ache, hands are calloused, and the mind is filled with lists of unfinished tasks and potential mishaps. In conclusion, ancient Greek domestic life, while culturally rich, is physically demanding and mentally exhausting. Household chores, minor accidents, and continuous social observation create an environment where rest is brief and recovery is slow. Modern individuals, accustomed to conveniences, safety measures, and private space, would find the routine both tedious and surprisingly taxing. The slow accumulation of fatigue, attention, and minor disasters transforms even ordinary domesticity into an endurance challenge, highlighting how ordinary life in ancient Greece required constant effort, vigilance, and patience. If you thought the day's grind ended with household chores, think again. In ancient Greece, one of the most persistent and unavoidable challenges is securing and consuming food and drink. Unlike modern kitchens stocked with refrigerators, supermarkets, and packaged meals, Greek citizens face physically demanding routines, repetitive preparation, and constant vigilance to ensure they are fed adequately. For a modern person accustomed to convenience, even a single day of these efforts would feel exhausting, tedious, and mildly boring in the historical sense. The day begins with breakfast, typically light and functional rather than pleasurable. Common options include barley or wheat, porridge, bread, olives, cheese, or fruit if available. Meals are designed to sustain energy for labor or study, rather than delight the senses. Water or diluted wine often accompanies food. For children and laborers, breakfast may be eaten standing or on the floor, sometimes quickly before heading to school, training, or work. Even this simple meal requires effort. Bread must be baked, olives pitted, and porridge stirred over a fire. Midday meals are similarly modest. Lunch, if it exists, often consists of leftovers from the previous day or simple fare like beans, lentils, or more bread. Wealthier citizens may enjoy fish, eggs, or occasionally meat. Food preparation is labor-intensive. Fires must be tended, water carried from wells, and dishes cleaned by hand. Accidental spills, burned meals, or spoiled ingredients can ruin hours of work and provoke mild frustration or social embarrassment if others are present. Dinner is the most elaborate meal, but remains repetitive and physically demanding. Ingredients are fresh but limited. Cooking involves multiple steps: washing vegetables, grinding grains, marinating or cooking fish or meat, and preparing side dishes. All preparation is manual, and cleanup is constant. Simple tasks, such as chopping vegetables or kneading dough, require strength and patience. Mistakes or spilled oil must be corrected immediately, as leftovers and waste are economically significant. Food storage adds another layer of complexity. Without modern refrigeration, ingredients must be consumed quickly or preserved using labor-intensive techniques like salting, drying, or storing in cool clay containers. Fruits, vegetables, and grains require careful monitoring to prevent spoilage. Ancient Greeks rely on observation, experience, and rudimentary preservation methods to avoid wasted meals. For a modern individual, the daily vigilance necessary to prevent food from spoiling adds a subtle but persistent cognitive load. Drinking water presents similar challenges. Wells and fountains are the primary sources, requiring effort to collect and transport heavy jars. Water is often mixed with wine to reduce contamination risks. Even so, the quality of water varies, and hygiene is limited. Simple hydration becomes a minor logistical effort, requiring attention to collection, storage, and distribution. For someone used to taps and bottles, this physical and mental effort would feel exhausting and tedious. Meal preparation and consumption are deeply social. Dining is a communal experience. Family members, neighbors, and occasional guests must be served appropriately. Seating arrangements, etiquette, and portioning are socially monitored. Even small mistakes, serving the wrong portion, failing to pour wine properly, or misplacing a dish invite subtle judgment. Social vigilance, combined with physical labor, makes each meal a minor endurance challenge. Food scarcity is another constant concern. While urban centers often have access to markets, rural citizens rely on subsistence farming or local trade. Crop failures, poor harvests, or economic fluctuations can make daily meals precarious. Ensuring enough food requires foresight, planning, and physical work. Citizens must balance cultivation, collection, storage, and preparation, a daily routine that can feel repetitive, physically taxing, and stressful. The act of eating itself demands attention to etiquette and moderation. Ancient Greeks valued decorum during meals, eating with moderation, chewing slowly, and conversing politely. Talking with your mouth full, eating too quickly, or appearing greedy is socially frowned upon. Even as hunger gnaws, citizens are expected to maintain composure, adding a layer of subtle cognitive and emotional stress. Food rituals intersect with religion. Offerings to household gods or temple deities are common, requiring small portions of meals to be set aside, prepared carefully, and sometimes consumed in a prescribed manner. Mistakes in preparation or ritual observance are socially noted, reinforcing the daily cognitive load alongside physical labor. Finally, the aftermath of meals adds to the fatigue. Cleaning dishes, washing, cooking utensils, sweeping floors, and storing leftovers are continuous tasks. Heavy clay pots, pans, and water jars must be handled repeatedly. Floors accumulate crumbs, spills, and soot, requiring repeated sweeping. The accumulation of these seemingly minor tasks ensures that food and drink, essential to survival, are also ongoing sources of labor and fatigue. In conclusion, food, drink, and daily survival in ancient Greece involve a cycle of labor, vigilance, and social awareness that would exhaust any modern individual accustomed to convenience. From meal preparation to storage, consumption, ritual offerings, and cleanup, every step demands physical effort, mental attention, and social competence. Even the ordinary act of eating is transformed into a slow, cumulative endurance challenge, creating the unique, mildly boring historical fatigue for which ancient Greek life is infamous. In ancient Greece, wine is more than a beverage. It is a cultural staple, a social lubricant, and a subtle source of daily challenges. While modern wine drinking is often leisurely and private, the ancient Greek approach is communal, ritualized, and occasionally exhausting, especially for someone used to modern conveniences and moderation. Understanding wine in Greek daily life is key to grasping the blend of social, physical, and cognitive labor inherent in their routines. Wine consumption is intertwined with water. Ancient Greeks rarely drink undiluted wine. It is mixed with water at ratios that vary according to social norms, weather, and occasion. Determining the correct proportion is surprisingly important. Wine too strong is considered uncultured and potentially socially offensive, while wine too weak is perceived as wasteful or careless. Every pour is observed by family members, guests, and sometimes neighbors. The subtle judgment accompanying these decisions adds a layer of mental effort to an otherwise simple act. Drinking is a social ritual. Symposia formal drinking gatherings require proper behavior, including conversation, gestures, and attention to guests. Seating arrangements are deliberate, and hosts are expected to provide adequate portions of wine and food. Guests, in turn, are judged on moderation, attentiveness, and participation in discussions. Even minor errors, pouring wine too eagerly, drinking too quickly, or failing to engage in conversation are socially noted. Maintaining composure while fatigued from the day's labor becomes an endurance challenge in itself. Serving wine is physically demanding. Clay craters and amphorae are heavy, and pouring requires precision. Spilled wine not only wastes a precious resource, but also creates cleaning work and potential social embarrassment. Floors are uneven, surfaces crowded, and multiple people often jostle in small spaces. Carrying large vessels requires strength, balance, and careful coordination. Each pour becomes a mini-task that combines physical effort, concentration, and social awareness. The rituals surrounding wine also include religious and household customs. Offerings to gods or ancestral spirits require a portion of wine to be poured at altars before consumption. These offerings are precise. Too little may offend. Too much appears wasteful. Missteps, spilling, pouring incorrectly, or failing to follow ritual sequencing, invite mild social or spiritual disapproval. The mental attention required for these small ceremonial acts accumulates fatigue over time, adding to the otherwise physical demands of daily life. Wine consumption also interacts with food. Meals and snacks are carefully paired to balance flavors, avoid digestive discomfort, and maintain social etiquette. Drinking without proper accompaniment, overeating or undereating is noted by others. Even minor digestive miscalculations can affect your ability to participate socially. Ancient Greeks value moderation in all things, meaning both excess and insufficiency are considered socially awkward. For a modern person accustomed to instant snacks and unmonitored drinking, this expectation introduces subtle mental strain. Spills, accidents, and minor mishaps are common. A slipped crater, a tipped cup, or an overturned dish can disrupt a meal, create cleanup labor, and invite mild social judgment. These small events happen repeatedly throughout daily routines, reinforcing a slow accumulation of fatigue and stress. Even when nothing catastrophic occurs, the vigilance required to avoid small errors is mentally and physically exhausting. Drunkenness is culturally regulated. While moderate consumption is praised, overindulgence is criticized and socially discouraged. Hosts and guests monitor each other, adding pressure to control consumption despite fatigue, heat, or the natural enjoyment of the beverage. Managing one's behavior to avoid embarrassment, injury, or social critique transforms what seems like relaxation into a subtle endurance exercise. Transporting wine also requires effort. Amphorae and large clay jars must be moved from storage, markets, or communal facilities to homes or symposiums. These containers are heavy, fragile, and cumbersome. Balancing them on shoulders, carrying them by hand, or rolling them along streets involves physical labor, careful attention, and spatial awareness to prevent breakage. Each transport event repeats throughout daily life, reinforcing a constant cycle of exertion and attention. By the end of the day, the combination of drinking customs, social expectations, ritual observances, and minor mishaps ensures that even the simple act of consuming wine becomes a slow, cumulative endurance challenge. Modern individuals, accustomed to pouring a glass from a bottle and sitting comfortably, would find ancient Greek routines surprisingly exhausting. The physical labor, mental attention, and social vigilance required for drinking wine blend to create the unique, mildly boring fatigue of historical daily life. In conclusion, wine in ancient Greece is far more than a beverage. It is a daily exercise in coordination, social awareness, ritual compliance, and mental endurance. From careful dilution and serving to ritual offerings, meal pairing, social moderation, and transportation, wine transforms mundane consumption into a slow, exhausting routine. For modern observers, experiencing even a single day of Greek wine customs highlights how ordinary life demanded constant vigilance, physical effort, and social sophistication, producing the subtle fatigue and mild boredom that characterized daily existence. Even after mastering daily cooking, meal preparation, and wine customs, ancient Greek citizens face another relentless challenge: the unpredictable availability of food and the daily struggle for survival. Unlike modern life, where supermarkets, refrigerators, and food delivery exist, The Greeks live in a world where supply is uncertain, labor is constant, and minor shortages are a persistent source of physical, mental, and social stress. Urban residents depend heavily on markets for grain, olive oil, fish, and other essentials. Markets are crowded, noisy, and often chaotic. Citizens must arrive early to secure fresh supplies, jostle through throngs of buyers, and negotiate prices with vendors. Competition is subtle but constant. Neighbors may reach for the same fish. Someone may cut in line, or a merchant may favor wealthier customers. Physical endurance and mental patience are required merely to acquire sufficient food for the day. Rural citizens face equally taxing routines. Farming, herding, and tending gardens demand hours of manual labor daily. Crops may fail due to drought, pests, or poor soil. Livestock require feeding, cleaning, and care. Minor errors, overwatering, underfeeding, or misplacing tools can reduce yields. Even a small shortfall affects household meals, creating an ongoing cycle of concern and adjustment. Fatigue accumulates from both the physical exertion and the constant vigilance required to maintain a reliable food supply. Storage and preservation of food are additional challenges. Grain is stored in clay jars or woven baskets, often in areas vulnerable to moisture, pests, or rodents. Olive oil and wine, vital for both consumption and ritual, are similarly stored in fragile amphorae. Spoilage is a constant risk. Every day, citizens check and manage their stock, carefully monitoring the condition of each item. A minor miscalculation, a jar knocked over, grains left damp, or oil-contaminated can trigger wasted resources and increased labor for replacement. Food scarcity is more than a minor inconvenience. It influences behavior, planning, and social dynamics. Households ration meals, limit portions, and adjust menus based on what is available. Children, laborers, and the elderly are especially affected by shortages, requiring careful prioritization and planning to ensure basic nutrition. Even mild hunger can reduce attention, irritability, and physical capacity, complicating daily life and social interactions. Economic fluctuations exacerbate these struggles. Grain prices vary with harvest success, trade availability, and political events. A poor harvest in one region can raise costs elsewhere. Citizens must budget carefully, balancing purchases with other household needs like clothing, tools, and ritual offerings. Minor mismanagement can result in inadequate food for the day or week. Modern observers, accustomed to predictable supermarket pricing and constant availability, would find this unpredictability stressful and exhausting. Social obligations intersect with survival. Festivals, religious rituals, and communal events require contributions of food or wine, regardless of personal supply. Even during minor shortages, households may be obligated to provide offerings or host guests. The effort to maintain social propriety while coping with scarcity adds cognitive and physical strain. A dropped basket, delayed delivery, or miscalculated portion becomes a source of mild embarrassment and fatigue. Daily labor itself is intertwined with hunger and fatigue. Manual tasks like farming, fetching water, and cooking are physically demanding. Minor hunger reduces stamina, making routine chores more exhausting. Citizens must pace themselves, manage energy, and maintain focus, all while facing the uncertainty of their next meal. The cumulative effect of these challenges produces a subtle but persistent mental and physical exhaustion. Even small emergencies create stress. A sudden shortage of grain, a spoiled batch of wine, or a failed fishing expedition triggers a series of corrective actions, walking long distances for replacements, adjusting meals, negotiating with neighbors or vendors, and improvising recipes. Each task requires effort, planning, and social finesse, turning minor disruptions into full-day challenges by evening. After laboring, rationing, and navigating social and economic pressures, citizens experience physical fatigue, mental weariness, and a lingering hunger. Even sleep provides only temporary relief, as tomorrow promises the same slow, repetitive endurance challenge. Modern conveniences, refrigerators, supermarkets, and predictable supply chains highlight how much effort daily survival demanded in ancient Greece. In conclusion, food shortages and daily survival struggles in ancient Greece highlight the relentless physical, mental, and social effort required to maintain even basic sustenance. From market acquisition to rationing, storage, and coping with minor shortages, citizens endured a slow, cumulative fatigue that modern life largely shields us from. Daily existence required vigilance, endurance, and resourcefulness, transforming the seemingly mundane act of eating into a prolonged challenge of survival, patience, and minor heroism. By the time you reach chapter 5, you might think ancient Greek life is merely about home chores, meals, and public rituals. But one of the most exhausting aspects of daily life was movement, traveling to work, markets, festivals, or religious sites, combined with labor-intensive work and constant exposure to minor hazards. For a modern individual accustomed to cars, public transit, and climate-controlled offices, even a single day of Greek travel and labor would feel physically taxing, mentally draining, and mildly boring in the sense of relentless monotony. Travel in ancient Greece is slow, uncomfortable, and unpredictable. Roads are mostly unpaved, uneven, and shared with animals, carts, and pedestrians. Walking long distances is common, as most citizens do not own horses or wheeled vehicles. Travelers face dust, mud, rocks, and the occasional stray animal. Even short trips require careful attention to avoid slips, trips, and minor injuries. Carrying goods or water jars adds significant physical strain, turning everyday movement into a mini endurance exercise. Weather intensifies the challenge. Summer heat scorches stone streets, dries out skin, and saps energy. Winter brings cold, rain, and occasional snow, turning travel into an uncomfortable and slow ordeal. Sun exposure, wind, and sudden storms create subtle but persistent hazards that modern travelers rarely face. Protection is minimal. Cloaks, sandals, and simple tunics offer little insulation or comfort. Even brief trips require stamina, preparation, and constant awareness of environmental conditions. Labor is equally demanding. Most citizens work physically intensive jobs, from farming and herding to pottery, fishing, and construction. Even skilled artisans endure repetitive motions, long hours, and exposure to dust, heat, or smoke. Physical fatigue accumulates slowly but steadily. Kneading clay, hammering metal, grinding grain, or lifting water jars engages muscles continuously, leaving the body sore and taxed by the end of the day. Work is often socially observed. Supervisors, peers, and community members monitor effort and efficiency. Failure to perform tasks quickly or correctly invites subtle judgment. Even small mistakes, misaligned pottery, spilled grain, or unevenly baked bread can affect social standing, livelihood, or household well-being. The constant interplay of physical labor, cognitive attention, and social expectation creates cumulative fatigue beyond mere bodily exertion. Market visits amplify the challenge. Traveling to buy or sell goods involves physical exertion and social negotiation. Streets are crowded, merchants shout, animals wander, and goods are heavy. Citizens must navigate obstacles, carry supplies, and interact politely with vendors and neighbors. Maintaining patience while balancing the risk of spills, dropped items, or minor injuries. The combination of physical labor and social vigilance makes market travel exhausting in both body and mind. Even minor hazards can create disproportionate stress. Stones, potholes, stray animals, and uneven terrain increase the risk of falls. Carrying water, food, or tools multiplies the potential for accidents. A single misstep can spill jars, break pottery, or strain muscles, creating cascading challenges for the remainder of the day. Modern urban life, with paved streets, vehicles, and safety regulations, obscures how much energy daily travel required in ancient Greece. Workdays are long. Citizens often begin at sunrise and continue until sunset, with minimal breaks. Meals, if not prepared in advance, require multitasking, tending crops while keeping food warm, or managing tools while observing social obligations. Physical exertion blends seamlessly with mental vigilance and social awareness, leaving little opportunity for rest. Even brief respite is punctuated by obligations, chores, or environmental hazards. Hazards are not limited to accidents. Theft, disputes, or minor conflicts arise during travel and work. Crowded markets, public roads, and communal labor sites expose citizens to subtle social friction. Negotiating these challenges demands attention, patience, and conflict management, further contributing to cumulative exhaustion. Even without catastrophic events, the constant monitoring of one's environment and behavior creates persistent mental fatigue by evening. After a day of travel, labor, and navigation of hazards, citizens are physically worn, mentally fatigued, and socially drained. Even mundane tasks, returning home, preparing meals, or performing light chores feel disproportionately exhausting due to accumulated strain. The slow, repetitive endurance of daily movement and work is a defining feature of ancient Greek life. In conclusion, travel, work, and daily hazards in ancient Greece create a continuous, exhausting cycle of physical exertion, mental attention, and social vigilance. Uneven roads, heavy loads, environmental challenges, long hours, and constant minor accidents transform routine movement and labor into a slow, cumulative endurance test. Modern conveniences like vehicles, paved roads, and workplace safety obscure how physically and mentally taxing everyday life was. Surviving a single day of Greek travel and work requires stamina, patience, and an extraordinary tolerance for minor, relentless challenges. After surviving the arduous challenges of travel, ancient Greek citizens face another layer of daily strain: the physical and mental hazards of work. Combined with minor mishaps that accumulate into persistent fatigue, labor is not merely a functional necessity. It is a constant endurance test where even small mistakes or environmental factors can transform routine tasks into prolonged challenges. For a modern person accustomed to ergonomic tools, regulated hours, and safety precautions, daily work in ancient Greece would feel exhausting, repetitive, and mildly boring in a historically accurate sense. Farming, one of the most common occupations, is physically grueling. From sunrise, farmers plow fields, sow seeds, weed, and harvest crops, often using primitive wooden tools or metal implements that require significant effort. Soil is uneven and stones abound, making even simple tasks like planting or digging taxing. Repetitive bending, lifting, and kneeling strains muscles and joints. Environmental factors, sun exposure, heat, rain, or wind intensify fatigue, as citizens must continue labor despite discomfort or adverse weather. Fishing and coastal labor present their own hazards. Fishermen manage nets, haul boats, and navigate shallow or rocky waters. Drowning, slips, and minor injuries are constant risks. Nets tangle, fish bite, and equipment breaks. Even the physical effort of carrying a day's catch to market adds cumulative strain. Mental attention is continuous. One misstep could damage equipment, injure oneself, or reduce the day's yield, transforming labor into a prolonged endurance exercise. Artisans and builders face repetitive motion hazards. Potters shape clay on spinning wheels, often kneading and lifting heavy materials. Blacksmiths hammer metals, exposed to heat, sparks, and soot. Masons lift stones and mix mortar under the sun. Each occupation involves physical exertion combined with careful technique. A single lapsa, cracked pot, misaligned stone, or over-hardened metal can ruin hours of effort. Attention to detail, coordination, and endurance are required continuously, with little opportunity for rest. Market labor introduces another dimension of strain. Merchants and porters lift, transport, and arrange goods throughout the day. Jars of olive oil, sacks of grain, baskets of fish, and amphorae of wine are heavy and fragile. Dropped items break, spill, or create additional labor, requiring quick cleanup to prevent further loss. Crowded streets and uneven surfaces increase the risk of accidents, while social expectations demand politeness, negotiation, and patience amidst chaos. Each minor mishap compounds the slow accumulation of physical and mental fatigue. Even domestic work is full of hidden hazards. Women managing households perform chores that blend physical labor with social expectations. Sweeping, scrubbing, carrying water, preparing meals, and maintaining clothing are repetitive, physically taxing tasks. Spills, torn clothing, burned food, or misplaced items generate additional work and subtle social judgment. Children and animals add unpredictability, making routine tasks into minor endurance tests that demand constant attention. Occupational hazards are compounded by environmental factors. Uneven streets, dusty workshops, blazing hearths, and open-air workspaces expose citizens to constant low-level discomfort. Minor burns, bruises, scrapes, and fatigue accumulate over time. Even seemingly trivial tasks, kneading clay, carrying baskets, or trimming crops require careful coordination to prevent minor accidents. Modern safety standards, ergonomic tools, and climate control would have drastically reduced this slow accumulation of exhaustion. But ancient Greeks relied on vigilance, skill, and physical resilience. Mistakes are socially significant. A potter producing uneven pottery, a farmer mismeasuring seeds, or a merchant mispricing goods risks gossip, subtle criticism, or lost sales. Attention to detail is continuous, mentally taxing, and physically intertwined with repetitive labor. Even minor mishaps create cascading consequences, forcing citizens to reallocate energy and time to compensate. Repetition itself contributes to mental fatigue. Each day mirrors the previous one. Similar chores, similar hazards, similar physical demands. The monotony, combined with vigilance, physical effort, and social scrutiny, produces a unique, boring historical fatigue that is exhausting in cumulative effect. Modern work environments, with breaks, variety, and automation, obscure how relentless daily labor was in ancient societies. By evening, after enduring travel, manual labor, and minor accidents, citizens are physically worn, mentally drained, and socially vigilant. The cumulative effect of repetitive tasks, attention to minor hazards, and social pressure ensures that even simple rest feels partial. Sleep is sought eagerly, but tomorrow promises the same slow, endurance-testing routine with minor variations in weather, tasks, and hazards. In conclusion, occupational hazards, labor, and minor mishaps in ancient Greece transform everyday work into a prolonged test of stamina, vigilance, and attention. From farming and fishing to crafting, trading, and domestic duties, physical exertion is intertwined with mental focus and social expectations. Modern observers, accustomed to safer, more convenient, and regulated workplaces, would find Greek labor exhausting, repetitive, and mildly boring in the historical sense. Surviving a single day requires endurance, patience, and tolerance for minor, continuous challenges. Even after mastering the physical labor and occupational hazards of ancient Greece, citizens face the unpredictable challenges of travel and movement. While travel may seem mundane, in reality, it is a continuous test of endurance, vigilance, and resilience. Modern conveniences, such as paved roads, vehicles, and protective gear, would be unrecognizable luxuries. In Greek life, even short journeys are fraught with minor mishaps, accidents, and cumulative exhaustion. The roads themselves are a constant hazard. Most paths are unpaved, rocky, and uneven. Rain transforms dirt paths into slippery mud, while summer heat bakes stones, making them hot and abrasive. Travelers must navigate these obstacles while carrying heavy loads, balancing jars of water, baskets of grain, or bundles of firewood. One misstep, a twisted ankle, a dropped basket, or a slipped sandal can derail an entire day's work, forcing physical exertion and mental recalibration. Even small incidents have ripple effects, as broken pottery, spilled food, or lost tools create additional tasks. Animals complicate travel. Goats, dogs, donkeys, and the occasional horse wander streets and paths freely. A sudden movement from a stray animal can knock over goods, startle travelers, or cause minor injury. Crossing paths with herds or animals transporting cargo requires careful observation and patience. For a modern person accustomed to regulated traffic and animal control, these encounters are exhausting in their unpredictability and constant need for attention. Weather is another relentless factor. Sudden rainstorms, gusting winds, or scorching sun demand physical resilience and preparation. Citizens often walk barefoot or in thin sandals, with only simple tunics and cloaks for protection. Heat, cold, and wet conditions add physical strain and increase the likelihood of minor accident slips, falls, or fatigue-induced mistakes. The cumulative effect of exposure to the elements transforms routine travel into a physically demanding ordeal. Navigating social interactions during travel adds a subtle cognitive burden. Streets, markets, and public spaces are crowded. Citizens must manage collisions, avoid conflicts, negotiate space with vendors, and maintain social decorum. Even minor breaches of etiquette, pushing too forcefully, failing to greet a neighbor, or spilling goods near a stranger invite observation, judgment, or gossip. Mental vigilance is required alongside physical effort, compounding fatigue. Load carrying is physically taxing. Water jars, food, tools, and trade goods are heavy and often awkwardly shaped. Balancing them while traversing uneven terrain demands stamina, coordination, and foresight. A single miscalculation, dropping a jar, misjudging weight, or tripping on a rock creates additional labor, cleanup, and potential social embarrassment. The repetition of these tasks throughout daily life slowly saps energy and patience, even brief. Travel includes minor emergencies. A jar of water may break, food may spill, or personal items may be lost or damaged. Each minor mishap interrupts the rhythm of the day and requires immediate attention. Travelers often carry tools or supplies to mitigate potential accidents, adding further weight and complexity. Modern urban conveniences obscure how much physical and mental effort was invested in managing minor contingencies during daily movement. Longer journeys, whether to neighboring villages, coastal towns, or sacred sites, magnify all these hazards. The cumulative fatigue from hours of walking, carrying goods, navigating terrain, and attending to social expectations is immense. Overnight stops, if needed, involve rough accommodations, exposure to elements, and preparation for continuing travel the next day. Even routine trips require careful planning, vigilance, and physical stamina. Minor injuries are inevitable. Blisters, sprained ankles, cuts, and bruises accumulate slowly, adding discomfort to every step. Travelers must compensate by adjusting pace, redistributing loads, or improvising solutions. These small, repeated inconveniences create a unique form of cumulative exhaustion. Bodily weariness paired with mental alertness and social awareness. By evening, after a day of travel, labor, and minor mishaps, citizens return home physically sore, mentally fatigued, and socially aware of minor errors or accidents that may have occurred during the day. Even a successful journey is draining, as the mind and body have been continuously engaged in problem-solving, hazard avoidance, and endurance. The slow accumulation of fatigue ensures that rest, though desired, is sometimes accompanied by anticipation of repeating these routines the following day. In conclusion, travel mishaps, minor accidents, and daily movement in ancient Greece highlight how ordinary life demanded endurance, vigilance, and resilience. Uneven roads, unpredictable weather, wandering animals, heavy loads, and social scrutiny transformed even simple journeys into prolonged exercises in patience and stamina. Modern conveniences obscure how much effort was required. Surviving a single day of Greek travel, work, and domestic responsibilities required constant attention, coordination, and tolerance for minor, cumulative challenges, a uniquely exhausting experience by historical standards.